We turn now to the Idaho student murders case against defendant Bryan Kohberger. His attorneys filed a motion this week to move the trial to Boise. Now, they claim Kohberger cannot get a fair trial in Latah County, quote, because of the pervasive, inflammatory, and often inaccurate publicity and the small size of the jury pool. Well, they wanted the trial moved to Ada County, which is about 300 miles away. Now, that's the same county, if it sounds familiar, where Chad and Lori Daybell were tried. Now, earlier this year, Kohberger's team contracted a trial consultant and a change of venue expert to conduct a survey of 400 residents in Latah County to determine the impact of pretrial publicity on the community. Well, prosecutors tried to stop that survey, but Judge John Judge ultimately agreed to let them continue as long as it didn't violate his gag order. Well, Kohberger is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students in their off-campus rental home in November of 2022. Here's a look back at the victims.
On November 13th, 2022, at around 4 a.m., 4 college students were brutally murdered. Each would soon become household names, known for their deaths, but remembered for their lives. Kaylee Gonsalves, she was 21 and born in Concord, California. Her family describes her as sociable, strong, and a hard worker.
Kaylee was our middle child out of 5. She was always competitive. She was smack dab middle, so Steven and Olivia were a little bit older. And Aubrey were a little bit younger, so she kind of had to figure out where to fit in, and she definitely did.
Maddie Mogan, also 21, was best friends with Kaylee since childhood. Maddie's family says she was known for her offbeat humor and her ability to make others laugh and smile.
She was so great. She lit up every room she'd come in, and she was just so positive and fun, and we love her and miss her so much.
20-year-old Xana Kernodle grew up in Idaho and was a talented gymnast as a child. In high school, she played volleyball, track, and soccer. Xana was going to school for marketing.
Xana was such a light in my life and so many others, and she knew and understood me more than anyone. Losing her is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, and it has left me heartbroken.
20-year-old Ethan Chapin loved sports and country music. He was Xana's boyfriend, a triplet who was incredibly close to his family.
We are eternally grateful that we spent so much time with him. And I want to remind you that that's the most important message that we have for you and your families, is to make sure that you spend as much time as possible with those people, because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
As of right now, Kohberger is scheduled to go on trial next June. The judge has set a date of August 29th for a hearing on that change of venue motion. That's being opposed by prosecutors. All right, still with me to discuss, civil rights attorneys Adante Pointer and Sue Ann Robinson. Sue Ann, I'll start with you. Let's put this on the table. You know, change of venue is not easy to get. Basically, you know, it's something that you need to show that this would really affect the rights of the defendants. Do you think they have a shot in this one?
Honestly, I think in this world today, the case is already an international sensation, a national sensation. It's bigger than the community already. So people already have so much information about the case. So the thing that they're trying to prevent by moving the venue could really happen anywhere, arguably, because people have information about the case everywhere. So typically the lawyer would argue, hey, this is a small venue, this is a small town, everyone here that's in the jury pool would be affected by this case and be unable to be unbiased. But that could prospectively happen anywhere in the information age, right, where everyone has access to information about the case.
Yeah, that's basically what the state argues. They're basically saying moving it is not going to change the familiarity of the jury pool. This is such a widely publicized case. But that publicity, Adante, they claim in their, you know, in the studies that were done by the folks that they hired, that it was emotion evoking, it was inflammatory, it was misleading, and it was not benign. And I do want to point out Moscow, where it would take place, 41,000 residents. Boise, almost 240,000 residents. Big difference there.
Absolutely, that's a big difference. I mean, you have about half as many people in one city as the other. The question really is, although the defendants, and they've done a great job with the studies, but as any of us know, the way in which a question is asked will oftentimes impact the way in which it is answered. And so, although they have these polls and they have these studies, I would think the prosecution in and of itself would raise that point, but also as the other guest analyst raised, just because you move it from one location doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a less of an impacted or affected jury pool when you have a case of this magnitude. And frankly, all of this, the whole area is small town America. So this case has an outsized effect within that general community. And I just don't see a move from one to the other as being such a difference maker that is going to impact the way in which the juries look at the trial and ultimately whether or not the defendant has a fair chance of justice.
Yeah, and to be specific, the defense must establish that there's a reasonable probability of prejudice to their client or to the defendant, Kohberger, in this case. And there's a couple of other things that they cited, Sue Ann, and these sort of touched home with me, that Latah is a very small, close-knit community. The surveys suggest that the community has prejudged the case, including conviction and death, and that major employers in the area are law enforcement and the University of Idaho. I found those to be particularly persuasive.
Those are very compelling facts for the defense, for them to put in there and say, hey, listen, not only is this a very small town, but a lot of the town actually has connections to the case. And I think that, you know, it's going to come down to the judge and what they decide, but I think it's something that in any case has to be borne out during voir dire. The attorneys have to be able to look at the jurors and ask them the question, despite what you know, despite your life experience, are you going to be able to be fair and impartial? And they have to trust and believe in that, because that's the cornerstone of the trial system.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think another cornerstone of Dante is this idea that the community wants justice. So you do everything you can to keep it in that community. And so what role does that play in a judge's decision?
Well, I think it's definitely a factor. I think it's a heavy factor in the sense that the community wants to take part in meting out justice, being a part of this process. And so, you know, I think the judge will give that a large consideration as a judge weighs the different factors before it.
You know, the other thing, Sue Ann, involves precedent. There's some very recent precedent, and we mentioned it, right? We have the Daybells who were sent out to Boise because of the same reason. And I would absolutely, maybe even higher. But, you know, the publicity surrounding that case, very similar, and I think this case may even have more publicity than that one. And we know judges like precedent, and even though it is something rarely granted, that precedent may certainly help the defense as well.
Certainly. I think the Daybell case is a good example of a case where, you know, changing the venue, the court decided it's better to be safe than sorry, better to let them have a different venue than have to put everyone in the community through the trial more than once, or possibly just have to do the trial again somewhere else because they go up on appeal and are successful. So I think the Chad Daybell trial is certainly good precedent for the defense. But again, it's going to come down to whether or not the judge thinks, listen, has the defense met these prongs? Have they met these? Do I feel like the jury here is not going to be able to be fair and impartial? And I think anywhere they go, they're going to have an issue. So it's a very tough argument to say, hey, if we stay here, it's not going to be fair in a situation where the trial is the information, the facts, everything about the case has been so widely publicized.
Yeah, fair enough. But at the end of the day, Adante, no matter how it turns out, it's good lawyering because it preserves this issue on appeal.
Absolutely. If I'm the defense, I'm vigorously fighting for this motion. I'm asking the judge, change the venue. I'm pleading with the judge to change the venue. And if he goes against me, I'm going to use that as my basis to come back around on appeal. So it is very good lawyering and it's strategy at its finest.
It's all part of that strategy.